What's going on, Raptors fans? Today I want to talk about this center position, the 5, the position the Raptors just seem to hate. Khem Birch is undersized for a 5, and basically the whole rest of the roster is made up of forwards. Typically what we'd end up doing during the season was playing with multiple forwards on the court who would pitch in to fulfill the different responsibilities of a 5. You can call it playing with a false 5 if you want to. The playoff series against the Sixers has really sparked a lot of conversation about whether we're missing a traditional 5 on the roster. Incorporating a traditional 5 into the Raptors' rotation as it's currently set up would have a lot of different impacts, but for this video I want to focus on one specific tendency the Raptors have, which is double teaming the ball handler. Now, I don't have any stats to prove this, but the eye test and Chris Finch tell me that the Raptors double team at a higher rate than anyone else in the NBA. And sure, maybe that could be a one-off thing and it'll change next year, but in my opinion, double teaming aggressively is a core part of the Raptors' identity and how they want to play basketball going forward. Double teaming at a high rate and having a roster full of athletic forwards with long wingspans are two things that go well together, and I'm going to take you guys to the drawing board to show how incorporating a traditional center into the Raptors rotation might impact these double team situations. So what I have drawn up here is a really basic double team situation, and the place we'll start is the ball handler trying to get the ball out of his hands when the double team comes. Having players with long wingspans off the ball allows the defense to cut out passing lanes and force the ball handler to be more precise with his passing out of the double team. You can reasonably expect a traditional 5 to have the long wingspan that a lot of our forwards do. Albeit they won't be able to be as mobile or as active with that wingspan, we can go ahead and say that this is a part of the double team situation that's minimally impacted by having a traditional center as opposed to a bunch of 4s. So the next thing we're going to focus on is when the ball handler gets the ball out of his hands in this situation. So if the ball handler is able to get the ball to this guy, it's going to force the defenders to make rotations. And in this case, what it's going to mean is that these defenders move like this as quickly as possible to make sure that the other team doesn't get an open shot out of this situation. So the factor least impacted in this situation is that traditional 5s are going to have the size that allows them to not have to get right up into the opposing player on the closeout to disrupt the shot the way smaller guards would have to. However, you can expect a traditional 5 to be much slower on these rotations. Traditional 5s are largely big guys with slow feet that wouldn't be able to make these closeouts as effectively as forwards, and consequently they would be giving up open shots at a way higher rate. So the last factor to consider is that after the rotations are made, each of these players are guarding different players than they're initially set out to be guarding. And what that means is that in this case, a traditional 5 is having to go rotate out to a perimeter player, a smaller player, and they're left on an island one-on-one where they have to hold their own on that matchup. So with this, you have to look at the rest of the league and what's happening with traditional 5s. Come playoff time, teams are routinely looking to get those 5s switched onto perimeter players so they can cook them on the perimeter. Rudy Gobert. One of the advantages of having a roster like ours is you have a ton of switchable players that can be rotated onto all kinds of players and hold their own on different kinds of one-on-one situations. So the point I'm trying to make by unpacking all this is that incorporating a traditional 5 into the rotation likely means double teaming a lot less, because as is, we weren't always great in double team situations defensively, and with a traditional 5, we're more likely to be worse. So I can imagine somebody's response to everything I've said so far being just find a traditional center that has mobility that allows us to play the same way going forward. And to that, I'd say that's a premium player you're describing, and somebody who would require serious assets to go get in the trade market. We're likely going to be a team that has the mid-level exception to spend in free agency going forward and draft picks in the 20s or later. And with those assets, you're not going to be able to reliably bring in that kind of player that's ready to play now and ready to play 30 plus minutes. Even if we find that kind of player in the trade market, something to keep in mind is that we weren't a good team offensively in half-court situations last year, partly because we had pretty bad spacing. One of the ways we coped with this is by getting out in transition as much as possible and being really effective in transition. How do you get out in transition as much as possible? By forcing turnovers mainly, and that's something that you can achieve by double teaming, by forcing errant passes, tipped passes. Those things help you get out in transition. So the larger impact here with the traditional 5 is they're probably going to make you double team less, but they're also probably going to make the spacing issue worse. And if the solution here is finding a traditional 5 that is mobile, that allows us to play the same way defensively, and also spaces the floor, you're talking about even more of a premium player now that costs even more in a trade. So I'm not necessarily saying the Raptors shouldn't be looking for a traditional 5 this offseason. What I'm saying is that if you don't find the right traditional 5, you're going to be creating new issues while you fix old ones. If you ask me personally, I don't want to see huge changes to our playing style. I have so much faith in our front office and our coaching staff that I want to see them play out their ideas and see how they end up. If the Raptors are ready to give up what it takes to bring in the traditional 5 that we need, so be it. But I'm not opposed to just seeing us lean in even further to Project 6-9 and seeing how it works out. I want to see how we look defensively as Scottie and Precious put on more weight. I want to see how we look defensively as we add more switchable, long, athletic forwards. I don't want to see us change our playing style in major ways for a mediocre center. Like, I'm here for the revolution. I want to hear what you guys have to say though. Should the Raptors rework the current roster construction and how they want to play basketball? Is Project 6-9 a waste of time? Should they lean in even harder to Project 6-9 and their current roster construction? Do we even have to worry about traditional 5s like that badly in a league where there's really just 2 dominant traditional 5s? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments, and find me on all socials at Toronto Hoop Talk.